How's it going today, guys? In today's episode, I'm going to talk about the Washington family that lived out on the Washington Flats homestead back in the day. I'm going to start out talking about Bushrod Corbin Washington II, and he was born on May 14th, 1839 in Charlestown, Virginia. And he would pass away on February 24th, 1919 at the age of 79 in Elmira, Washington. And he was a descendant of George Washington. And it's a pretty interesting story. I found a really long and lengthy article about him as well that I want to read to you guys now. And it's titled, Late Bushrod C. Washington, Deceased Descendant of Brother of Washington Pioneer. To the editor of the Spokesman Review, notice in the Spokesman Review the report of the death of Bushrod C. Washington in his 80th year. It was my privilege to know Mr. Washington somewhat intimately from the time he came from Charlestown, West Virginia, some 12 years ago. He came with his family to Spokane, following two of his sons who had preceded him a short time. After living in Spokane for several years, he moved with his family to a homestead on the Columbia, some 20 miles from Elmira, Washington, where he died recently and was buried at Elmira by the side of two daughters. The death of this historic character seems worthy of more than a passing notice. A direct descendant of Augustine Washington, the brother of George Washington, and named after Bushrod Washington, an Associate Justice of the United States Supreme Court, he was, as he had a right to be, proud of his lineage, though not boastful thereof. Reared at Charleston, where the Washingtons had large estates, accustomed in his early years at least to the culture, refinement, and luxury of the old Virginia home, when near 70, he left the scenes of his boyhood and manhood, with all the ties and associations of a life, and came to this county. And in his old age, on an undeveloped land claim in a remote and sparsely settled district, with his own hands helping to erect a cabin and doing much of the work on the place. It required courage to be a pioneer. Mr. Washington was a splendid type of the old-time Virginia gentleman, alas, fast becoming all too rare. Courteous, refined, and God-fearing, to the last he maintained the old Virginia custom of family prayer and grace at meals, things unknown in many homes in this busy age. It is fitting that the remains of Bushrod C. Washington, this worthy representative of so distinguished an American family, should rest within the state which bears his name. And the historical and patriotic societies of our state would do well to erect a monument over his grave. Peace to his ashes. 7 years after Bushrod's death, tragedy would befall his family out there on the homestead in the Columbia River. 3 of his children would die in a tragic accident one day in 1926. His son, Nat Washington Sr., his son, James Cunningham Washington, and his daughter, Peachy Washington, would all tragically pass away. Nat Washington Sr. was the son of Bushrod Corbin Washington, and by his second wife, Emma Edwards Washington. He was the third great-grandchild of John Augustine Washington and Hannah Bushrod Washington. John Augustine Washington was the full brother of President George Washington, Nat Washington Sr. was a prosecuting attorney of Grant County, residing in Ephrata. His sister Peachy and brother James Washington were drowned in the Columbia River while bathing Saturday. The body of James had been recovered, but dynamite was used without success in an endeavor to raise the other brother and sister, and ferrymen down the river have been notified to be on the lookout for their bodies. James and Peachy Washington were operating a stock ranch north of Elmira. The bodies of Nat Washington and his sister Peachy, who were drowned in the Columbia River near Seton Ferry on July 10th, were found Saturday morning near Bridgeport in Douglas County, 75 miles below the scene of their death. They were taken to Elmira, where a triple funeral service was held for James, Peachy, and Nat Washington last Wednesday, and their remains were laid beside those of their father and brother in the Elmira Cemetery. So just to clarify, I'm not positive if this old abandoned farmhouse was actually the old abandoned farmhouse that Bushrod Washington himself helped build back in the day. I know he came and settled in this exact area in 1909 and put up a cabin, but this house could have been built later, after 1926, after the tragedy and when the Washingtons left the area. And maybe somebody else lived down there for a while before they abandoned the house. Like I said, I'm not too sure, but I know the Washingtons lived down in the exact area where that farmhouse is located. All the stories match up to it being really close to right there. And there's all kinds of other little rumors and things I heard about this story, because this area is literally right next to the Colville Indian Reservation, and some people surmise that the land down there has a curse put on it for various reasons and whatnot. And typically when you look at the legends of cursed land, tragedies usually befall anybody that tries to live there and stay on it. Now, there could have been multiple reasons why the land may be cursed, and that's if you believe in things like that. When the dam was built and the Columbia River was moved the way it was and everything was set up how it is now, they had to actually destroy a number of old towns to make room for the water to come through. And with all that being said, they also had to remove a lot of cemeteries, old ancient cemeteries, and then some cemeteries they probably just flooded over with water. So there were a lot of things like that were happening at the time. So some sort of curse on the land, it seems kind of legit to me. And then when I look at the history of everything that happened in that area, it was tragedy after tragedy. And maybe if some new people did move down there and build the farmhouse that we're looking at right now, maybe tragedy befell them too. And that's why they had to flee. But anyways, this old abandoned farmhouse is located on state land now, so I don't see anybody living in that area or building anything there for a long time to come. I hope you guys enjoyed the episode. I'll see you guys next time.